3 years ago in New York City on New Year's Eve, an event known as the Great Collapse would unfold. In this event, a huge portal to another world would open up, completely destroying the city. From this collapse, these otherworldly and bizarre beings would emerge out of the portal and would begin to wreak havoc. Now, fast forward 3 years later to the present, everything has been rebuilt and New York is now known as Hell Salem's Lot. Also, a barrier has been created around the city so that the portal and destruction wouldn't spread elsewhere, and those beings that came out of it have now made peace with the humans. However, not everything is all sunshine and rainbows, because beneath the peace you have a world of crime and secret organizations. This right here is the setup to the manga and anime series Kekkai Sensen, also known as Blood Blockade Battlefront. Blood Blockade is an anime that came out back in 2015, animated by Studio Bones. It was adapted from its manga of the same name and is by the same creator who made Trigun. Now, this anime was huge when it first came out. Back when I was first getting into anime, it was like one of the hottest new series, and this was for a multitude of reasons that I'll get into later. But for those of you that have never seen or heard of it, you're probably wondering just what is Kekkai Sensen about? And the answer is honestly a bit more complicated than you may think. The story centers around our main character, Leonardo Watch, who's on a mission to retrieve his sister's vision, which was taken away by a deity from the other world. This was at the expense of him receiving the all-seeing eyes of God. And now, in order to get her vision back, he joins an organization named Libra to get closer in achieving his goal. But this path to achieving it isn't the most linear. You see, Kekkai Sensen is a very episodic anime, and some of the episodes can be very fast-paced. Like, you could be watching a side plot taking place in one moment, and then the next 3 minutes the show will throw 2 more at you. And in some cases, they can revolve around completely different things. Now, this isn't an easy thing to pull off, and it could leave the viewer feeling a bit lost or finding themselves having a bit of trouble when it comes to following the story. But if I'm being real, for the most part, I'd say Kekkai Sensen did a pretty solid job at keeping me invested into each episode. And a huge part of this is due to one of the series' strong suits, being its characters. Out the jump, the main cast of characters in the show caught my attention, partially because they have this insane level of swag that is showcased to us through some of the character designs, as well as their sick-ass fights and abilities that just adds an immense level of aura each time we see them. God damn, Zap is such a cool character. Most of the character designs are not just memorable, but also match the characters' personalities. For example, you got Leo's sweatsuit, which matches his chill and normal guy demeanor. Klaus, on the other hand, the leader of the organization, rocks a more sophisticated look, perfectly matching his more serious personality. And then of course you have Zap, whose whole design serves one purpose, and it's to just look as badass as he can, flaunting off that Rick Owens leather jacket as he should. But I'd also say his design sort of matches his more rebellious and impulsive attitude. And of course there's more members of Libra who I could bring up, but I'm sure y'all understand my point already. Speaking of personalities though, the other thing that made the characters stand out for me was of course their writing. Each of the main characters have their own interesting stories, most of which are completely different from one another. But what I really found interesting was just how their dynamics and interactions with one another were handled. For example, when Leo first joined the organization, he didn't seem to fully fit in, nor did he really have the amount of experience everyone else did. But slowly as the show goes on and he continues to spend more time with the team, this eventually changes, and he forms some great relationships with some of the other members like Klaus and Zap, and even gaining respect from the rest of the organization. And really as a whole, Libra starts to feel like one huge crazy family. They may be a little dysfunctional at times, but they sort of blend well with one another, and that's what made the main cast so memorable for me. Moving away from the characters though, another one of Kekkai Sensen's strong suits is the aesthetic. Okay, I know I've said this in 3 or 4 videos already, but I absolutely love a good aesthetic. When a series has a good aesthetic, then it'll add on to my overall personal enjoyment of it. And when it comes to Kekkai Sensen, it hit the nail on the damn coffin. It had me seated from the very first episode alone. The show basically mixes the urban setting of Hell Salem's Lot with some sci-fi elements here and there. There's also the architecture of some of the buildings and the constant lingering fog due to the barrier around the city, which blends together to give it a sort of gothic vibe. Not to mention, you also have the OST, just full of some very underrated jazz music. before doing this video, I genuinely forgot how solid this show's OST was. But anyways though, I think the atmosphere and the OST go hand in hand. It makes me appreciate the show's overall aesthetic even more. Hell Salem's Lot as a whole is just a very cool setting. Just like New York City, it's still a melting pot. However, this time it's a mixture of humans and all the weird, crazy creatures from the other world. This whole city is just so random and full of all types of surprises. But that's part of the reason why I like it so much. The place just feels so alive. And I can't really explain it, but in a way it feels like its own character. That may sound weird to some of you, but to those who have seen the anime, I'm sure you get what I mean. Now, with the two main strong suits out of the way, just how good is the show's story? The first season of Kekkai Sensen gets us familiar with everything, while also containing its own anime original arc, centering around the lore and mystery between two characters named Black and White. I think that this was a good idea to implement since, like I said earlier, the show is very episodic, with of course the main goal being to get Leo's sister's vision back. But adding another overarching plot for this season made things a lot more interesting, and it would end up concluding by the end of the first season. Now fast forward 2 years after season 1, in 2017 Bones will give the show its second season, this time still being episodic but closing in and focusing more on the main plot. It also covered the rest of the first part of the manga, and around the end of it would start to build up to the third season. But there's just one problem here. The third season of the show would never come out. Yes, over 8 years later, and this anime still has yet to receive another season. And low-key, from what it seems, it doesn't really look like Studio Bones will be making another one anytime soon. The second part of the manga finished a while ago, and the third part has been releasing chapters for a few years now. So it's not like there isn't more content to adapt. And again, the show was very popular when it came out. The characters were pretty popular, and I still occasionally see edits of the fight scenes. Hell, the ending theme of the first season was so huge and received so many fan animations that it basically had its own mini fandom. But even with all that, the show has yet to continue, and hopes for a new season slowly fade away more and more as time goes on. Even with this being the case though, a new season isn't impossible. Currently we're in a time where we've been seeing quite a few older shows getting new seasons or reboots. Shows like Bleach, Black Butler, and Devil is a Part-Timer each managed to get new seasons around 10 years after they each stopped airing. Even a show like World Trigger, which just had 2 new seasons a few years ago, recently got announced to be receiving a reboot. So with all that in consideration, the chances of Kekkai Sensen actually getting a new season are probably higher than they were years ago, and I am sure that it would garner a good amount of hype if a third season does get announced. Anyways though, Kekkai Sensen is a show that I think is still fairly underrated. From the characters and aesthetic to the abilities and power system, this show was genuinely such a unique experience when I first watched it, and from all of that, I think it's an anime that deserves a continuation. And now with all that being said, we've reached the end of the video. As always, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I am hoping to get to at least 6K some point next year, so it would mean a lot. Anyways though, with that out the way, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.